Good evening, all of you. I hope you all are doing well. And today we're going to study the modern history, British rule and its impacts, regional power from 1858 to 1947. This is the part 5 of the series. Again, we're going to study all these aspects through the MCQs. Okay, let's start the session. Today's our first question is, which among the following year Surendranath Banerjee was eliminated from Indian civil services? I repeat once again. Which among the following year Surendranath Banerjee was eliminated from Indian civil services? What is the answer? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option A, 1874 AD. Okay, so in the year of 1874, Surendranath Banerjee was eliminated from the Indian civil services. Okay, remember 1874. Banerjee was the second Indian to pass the Indian Civil Services examination. Okay, we are now talking about the period of British ruling. Okay, so not the independent India. So Banerjee, it means Surendranath Banerjee was the second Indian to pass the Indian Civil Service examination and was appointed to the post in Sylhet. Okay, in his homeland. So he again got eliminated from the 1874. Okay, so because he did something against the British government. That's why they eliminated the Surendranath Banerjee from the Indian civil services. Okay, next. Which one of the following statements does not apply to the system of subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley? Read the question carefully. They are asking which one statement does not apply to the subsidiary alliance, which was introduced by the Lord Wellesley. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option C, to secure a fixed income for the company. Okay, this provision was not there in the subsidiary alliance, which was introduced by the Lord Wellesley. So look at the option A, B, and D. So option A says to maintain a large standing army at other expense. Others expense means the people who are accepting the subsidiary alliance, like Mysore kingdom and the Nizam of Hyderabad. All these people, not only these people, and many people, they have expected the subsidiary alliance. Okay, so that's why they have to maintain a large standing army in their court. Okay, in their expense. So that's why option A is right. B, to keep India safe from Napoleonic danger. Okay, that was that the subsidiary alliance agreement happened because of the this main thing. Okay, to keep the India safe from the Napoleonic danger, because the Britishers say that they're going to, you know, they are going to look after the each and every kingdom which is under the subsidiary alliance. So next, D, to establish British paramountcy over the Indian states. That is obvious. That's why A, B, D all are correct regarding the subsidiary alliance introduced by the Lord Wellesley. To secure a fixed income for the company, it is not the provision of the subsidiary alliance. Okay, so that's why option C is correct. Next, the cabinet mission came to India in. Simple question. What is the answer? The cabinet mission came to India in. Let's see the answer. Answer is option D, none of the above. Because the cabinet mission came to India on the March 23, 1946. Okay, so in the 1946, the cabinet mission arrived at the Delhi. Okay, so the cabinet mission was composed of the three cabinet ministers of the England, Sir Patrick Lawrence, Secretary of State for India, next Sir Stanford Cripps, President of Board of Trade, next Alexander. Okay, so these three people were there in the cabinet mission and it came to India on March 23, 1946. That points you need to remember. Okay, and you need to remember the objective of the mission also. The objective of this mission was to devise a machinery to draw up the constitution of independent India. Okay, so by the name only you can understand it is aimed at devising a machinery to draw up the constitution of independent India. Okay, and to make arrangements for interim government. Okay, I hope this is clear too. Next, who among the following had not participated in the second roundtable conference? What is the answer? Let's see the answer. Answer is option D, Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, the second roundtable conference opened on September 7, 1931, and Gandhi represented the Indian National Congress and Sarojini Naidu represented the Indian women. Okay, so here you need to remember Jawaharlal Nehru did not participate in the second roundtable conference. Behalf of the Indian National Congress, Gandhi represented the second roundtable conference, and along with that, Sarojini Naidu, she represented the Indian women. Okay, then Madan Mohan Malviya, Ghanshyam Das Birla, then Muhammad Iqbal, Sir Mirza Ismail, Diwan of Mysore, S.K. Datta, and Sir Syed Ali Imam. They were among the other people. They have attended the second roundtable conference. Okay, so that's why Jawaharlal Nehru, he did not attend at the second roundtable conference. Next, which one of the following was not a feature of railways in colonial India? So look here carefully. They are asking which one is not a feature of railways in colonial India. Let's see the answer. Answer is option C. The construction work disturbed the ecology. Okay, so this one is not a feature of railways in colonial India. So you can look after the options A, B, and D. So in A, the main purpose of the setting up of railways in India was to serve the interest of the empire. Which empire? British Empire. Okay, so colonial empire. That's obviously true. So that's why they came up with the railway system in India, railway networks in India. That is to serve the interest of the British people, not to serve the people of India. Okay. So next, look at the option B. British capital investment were invited with 15% guaranteed interest to be paid if necessary from Indian revenues. Okay, so here what they are telling, the 15% guaranteed interest would be there for the railways. Okay, so people who are investing in the railways. So that's all. That was there. That is obviously the feature of Indian railways in the colonial India. So look after the option D. The construction of the railways was planned in such a way that it connected the internal markets with the ports. Because the Britishers, what was their main activity in India when they were in India? That is to take the raw materials and again selling back the manufactured goods to India, because India was a big market for them. They were taking all our raw materials and selling it back to ourselves only. So that's why they needed a good network which will connect to the internal markets and different ports of the city, different parts of the country. So that is true, but provided no interconnection between internal market cities. That is obviously there. Then the construction work disturbed ecology. It is not the feature of railways in colonial India. Okay. Next. Which of the following statements about the Ilbert Bill is or are correct? Quotes are given. You need to find out which statements are true about the Ilbert Bill, which came in India 1883. Let's see the answer. Answer is C, 1 and 3. Okay, look after the statement number 1. It proposed to grant limited criminal jurisdiction to native official. Okay, so that is there. And next, option number 3. The proposed bill generated opposition from England's European subjects in India. Okay, so these two statements are true regarding the Ilbert Bill. So regional intergovernmental Ilbert Bill was introduced in 1883 by the Viceroy Ripon. So that is to allow Indian judges and magistrate the jurisdiction to try the British offenders in criminal cases. Okay, so here Indian judges can also magistrate the jurisdiction of the British offenders. So before this in Ilbert Bill introduction, it was not there. Only British judges can take a look after the British offenders cases. So, but after the Ilbert Bill, so this provision was abolished. Okay, after opposition from the Europeans in Britain as well as in India, the bill was withdrawn and reintroduced after amendment saying that a jury of 50% Europeans was required if an Indian judge was to face a European. So by this Ilbert bill and its opposition, you can understand. So Britishers thought they are very superior. Okay, they thought they were very superior compared to the Indians. So that's why only British judge can look after the British offenders, not Indian judge. Okay, so this is all about the Ilbert bill. So that's why 1 and 3 are correct. Okay, next. Which colonial administrator made the following declaration about the partition of Bengal in 1904? So actually 1904 and 5. Okay, 1905. Bengal united is a power. Bengal divided will pull in different ways. That is perfectly true and one of the merits of the scheme. Who made that statement? And I'll give you the hint. He is the person behind the partition of Bengal. With that clue, you can answer this question. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option A, Lord Curzon. Okay, despite the strong Indian nationalist opposition, partition of Bengal in 1905 carried out by the British Viceroy in India, Lord Curzon, and he made the statement, Bengal united is a power, Bengal divided will pull in different ways. That is perfectly true and one of the merits of the scheme. Okay, Lord Curzon said like that. Who among the following introduced the permanent settlement of Bengal in 1793? Be quick, guys. What is the answer? Okay, let's see the answer. Lord Cornwallis. Okay. So Lord Cornwallis introduced the permanent settlement of Bengal in 1793. The permanent settlement of Bengal was brought into effect by the East India Company, which was headed by the Governor General Lord Cornwallis. This was basically an agreement between the company and the Jamindars to fix the land revenue. So by the word only you can understand permanent settlement. What they are settling here? Land revenue. Okay, so this agreement is mainly happening between the East Indian Company and Jamindars. Okay, so it was first enacted in the Bengal, Bihar and Odisha region. So this was later followed in northern Madras presidency and the district of Varanasi also. Okay, next. The cabinet mission plan for India envisaged a, what is the answer? What it envisaged? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option D, Union of States. Okay, the cabinet mission proposed the formation of Union of India, comprising both the British India and the princely states. Okay, so when the Britishers left the India, it was divided into different princely states, as well as British Indian part was also there. So the Union would remain in charge of only foreign affairs, defense and communication, leaving the residual powers to the vested with the provinces. Okay, so here what they told according to the cabinet mission plan, union of states, not the federation, not confederation, not the unitary form of government. Okay, so cabinet mission plan for India envisaged a union of states. Okay, the Act of 1909 was associated with. This is a very simple question. Act of 1909 is also called as Morley Minto reforms, right? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option A, introduction of separate electorates. Okay, so here introduction of separate electorate was the provision of Act of 1909. It is also called as Morley Minto reforms. Okay, an important event of Lord Dufferin's tenure as Viceroy was. This is also very simple and important question. Let's see the answer. Answer is option C, establishment of Indian National Congress. So such an important event happened during the Lord Dufferin's tenure. So Lord Dufferin was appointed as the Viceroy of India in 1884, and we all know when our Indian National Congress got established. It was got established in 1885, right? So Dufferin's administration in India saw the Third Burmese War in 1885, resulting in the annexation of Upper Burma. Okay, as a result, his viceroyalty saw the final extinction of the Burma as an independent power. And another event was foundation of Indian National Congress by the A.O. Hume and Surendranath Banerjee. Okay, in 1885. I hope this is clear to you. Next, the Wright Warre experiment in land revenue was started by. Who started the Wright Warre system? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is B. Alexander Reed. Raitwari, a system to collect the revenues from the cultivators of agriculture land. Okay, by the name only you can understand Raitwari. So what is right means? Right means nothing but farmer. Okay, a system. It is a one form of system to collect the revenues from the cultivators of the agriculture land. So in the previous questions, what we have studied, what we have discussed, the land revenue collected from the jamindars. But here the other way around, it is collected from the cultivator itself. Okay, and it was initiated by the Alexander Reed in Burma Hall in 1792 and was continued by the Thomas Munro in Madras, Bombay, parts of Assam, and Coorg province of British India. Okay, so Raitwari was better than Jamindari system because in Jamindari system, Jamindars would be there, okay, and they will be collecting the all the money from the farmers, then they are giving back it to the Britishers. So here middleman was the Jamindar. But here in the Raitwari system, there is no middleman. Directly it is between the farmer and the British East Indian Company. Okay. So Raitwari was far better than the Jamindari system because it is eliminating the middleman. Okay. Next. From which year was regular and scientific census started in India? So this is a very important question. Which year regular and scientific census started in India? Let's see the answer. Answer is option C, 1881. Okay. So in the 1881, scientific and regular census started in India. Okay. It started in the British rule itself, in the British rule. A systematic and modern population census in its present form was conducted non-synchronously between the 1865 and 1872 in different parts of the country. Okay, so even before 1881, it was there, but not systematically, not in the form of modern day what we are using now. Okay, so this effort culminated in 1872. It has been popularly, labeled as the first population census of India. However, the regular and scientific census was started in 1881 in India. Okay, so and this is not the first year when the scientific, census started in India. Not scientific and regular, just census. So census started in India even before the British rule. During the period of the Mauryans also, the census started in India. But the regular and scientific census was started in India in 1881. Okay, so I have this clear. Next. Who among the following was or were associated with the introduction of right of way settlement in India during the British rule? Here quotes are given. You need to find out the correct answer using the quotes given below. The people who are associated with the right of way settlement in India. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option C, 2 and 3. Okay, Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro. So in the recent question we have discussed, right, Alexander Reed is the past person who introduced the right of way settlement in India. Later, after that, Thomas Munro continued it. Okay, so Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro, they both are the, these people are associated with the introduction of right of way settlement in India. The Trade Dispute Act of 1929 provided for. What is the answer? The Trade Dispute Act of 1929 provided for. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is D, a system of tribunals and a ban on strike. Okay. Trade Dispute Act of 1999 provided for a system of tribunals and a ban on strike. Okay. The College of Fort William was established by which one of the following Governor General? The College of Fort William was established by which one of the following Governor General? Let's see the answer. Answer is C, Richard Wellesley. Okay. In order to provide the instruction in the vernacular languages of India to the civil and military officials of the East India Company. Okay. So here, why the College of Fort William was established? That is the big task. Why they have done so? Because to give the instruction in the vernacular languages of India to the civil and military officials of East India Company. Because civil and military officials of East India Company, most of them they were Britishers. They don't know the vernacular languages of India. Okay, so in order to interact with the people of India, okay, so that's why they started the College of Fort William. It was done by the Richard Wellesley. It was established on 18th August 1800 by the Lord Richard Wellesley. Okay, so remember that one. Next. The object of the Butler Committee of 1927 was. What is the object of Butler Committee? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is D. Improve the relationship between the government of India and the Indian states. So the Butler Committee, 1927, it was set up to examine the nature of the relationship between the states and the government. Okay, so which government? British government. Okay, so that's why option D is the correct answer. The first partition of Bengal took place in the year. The first partition of Bengal took place in the year. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option D, 1905. We all know that, right? Partition of Bengal, it was carried out by the British Viceroy India, that is Lord Curzon in 1905. Okay. When did Queen Victoria declare the taking over the Indian administration under the British Crown? It's very important and very simple one. What is the answer? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option A, 1st November 1858. Okay, so why the Queen Victoria declared that taking over the Indian administration under the British Crown? Because just after the Sipai Mutiny, okay, that is First War of Independence that happened on 1857. Okay, so that war was very decisive. That mutiny was very decisive itself because the British East India Company administration got ended after that. So now the administration over India, it was taken out on the name of the British Crown. Okay, it was directly administered by the British Crown. Okay, so that's why on 1st November 1858, Queen Victoria declared the taking over the Indian administration under the British Crown. So it indirectly indicates that British East India Company's administration over India was ended. Okay, provincial autonomy was provided by which act? Which act provided the provincial autonomy in India? So let's see the answer. Answer is option A, the Government of India Act 1935. Okay, so Government of India Act 1935 was passed by the British Parliament in August 1935 with the 321 sections and 10 schedules. Okay, you can remember, you can see how huge it was. Okay, 321 sections were there, 10 schedules were there in the Government of India Act 1935. So that's why it is also called as the blueprint of Indian Constitution, because our present day constitution has borrowed a lot of the provisions from the Government of India Act 1935. So this was the longest act passed by the British Parliament so far, because we have studied a lot of the acts and regulations right before this. We have started from 1773 Regulation Act and Fits India Act, Charter Acts, many acts came. But none of those acts was such as long as the Government of India Act 1935. This one is the very lengthiest one because it consisted 321 sections and 10 schedules. And the most remarkable feature of the act was the provincial autonomy. Okay, so they have given the autonomy for the different provinces of India with the abolition of diarchy at provinces. So diarchy system was there, right? This diarchy came through the Government of India Act 1919. So that is called as Montego-Chelmsford Act. Okay, so this diarchy came through the 1919. It got abolished on the Government of India Act 1935. So that's why provided the provincial autonomy to the different provinces of the India. The entire provincial administration was introduced to the responsible ministers who were controlled and removed by the provincial legislature itself. Okay, so that's why Government of India Act 1935 provided the provincial autonomy to the different provinces. Okay, next. Why was the Delhi Darbar organized in 1877 with pomp and show? So why Delhi Darbar organized in 1877? What was the reason? Any guesses? Let's see the answer. Answer is option C. The British wanted to replace the Mughal emperor from the minds of the people as their rulers. Okay. So look at here. You can see the diplomacy. Okay, diplomacy of the Britishers. So why they have organized Delhi Darbar in 1877? Because the British wanted to replace the Mughal emperor from the minds of the people. So before this Delhi Darbar, which happened in 1877, the Mughal people, they were there, they were dominant. Anyhow, even before that, the Mughal emperor started declining. So to replace the Mughal emperor from the minds of the people as their rulers, they have organized the Delhi Darbar in 1877. The proclamation Darbar of 1877 was held beginning on the 1st January 1877 to designate the coronation and proclamation of Queen Victoria as the Empress of India, not Mughal or not any Indian native rulers. So what they have proclaimed, Queen Victoria as the Empress of India. She is the one. She is the one. She is the Queen of India. The 1877 Darbar was largely an official event and not a popular occasion with mass appeal. like 1903 and 1911. Because in 1903 and 1911 also Delhi Darbar happened. It is much different from the 1877 Darbar. Okay, it was attended by the first Earl of Lytton, Viceroy of India, Maharajas, Nawabs, and intellectuals also. And this was the culmination of transfer of control of much of India from the British East India Company to the Crown. Okay, so that's why option C is the right answer. That is the reason behind organization of Delhi Darbar in 1877. Okay, next. During whose viceroyship did the High Court came presidential cities of Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option C, John Lawrence. During the John Lawrence viceroyship, the high courts came into existence at the three presidencies, usually Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. Okay, these three presidencies, high court got established. Okay, so remember John Lawrence period. The Indian legislature was made bicameral for the first time. Through which act? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is Government of India Act 1919. The Indian legislature was made bicameral for the first time by the Government of India Act 1919. It is also called as Montego-Chelmsford reforms. Okay, next. The first census in India during the British period was held during the tenure of. What is the answer? First census in India during the British. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is option C, Lord Mayo. So India's first census was conducted in 1872 during the viceroyship of Lord Mayo. So, but this census was unofficial. Okay, so they are just asking the census. Okay, first census. It happened in 1872. But the scientific and modern way census came in 1881. Okay, so that's why clearly remember first census was conducted in 1872 and the viceroy was Lord Mayo. Okay, I hope this is clear too. And another point you should remember the first official census was conducted in 1881 during the viceroyship of Lord Ripon. Okay, Lord Mayo and Lord Ripon. Next. With reference to the colonial rule in India, consider the following events. And you need to arrange them in the chronological order. What is the answer? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is B. They are in the chronological order only. 1, 2, 3, 4. So Morley Minto reform that came on 1909. Okay, then Delhi became the capital of India in 1911. And the first World War took place between 1914 to 18, right? It means first World War began at the 1914. Next Lucknow fact happened on 1916. Okay, that's why 1, 2, 3, 4 is the correct sequence. Once again, I will tell you Morley Minto reforms, 1909. Delhi became the capital of India in 1911, and the First World War begins on the 1914, and the Lucknow Fact, 1916. Next. Who was the first Indian native ruler to accept the system of subsidiary alliance? What is the answer? Who accepted the subsidiary alliance first time? Let's see the answer. Answer is option B, Nizam of Hyderabad. Okay, the Nizam of Hyderabad was the first person to enter the subsidiary alliance or to accept the subsidiary alliance in 1798. Okay, then Tipu Sultan of Mysore refused to do so, but after the British victory in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Mysore was forced to become the subsidiary state. And after that, the Nawab of Awadh was the next to accept the subsidiary alliance in 1801. Okay, the first kingdom is Nizam. The first person is Nizam of Hyderabad in 1798. And after that, Mysore kingdom. And third state is Nawab of Awadh, Awadh state. Okay, the limitation law, which was passed by the British in 1859, addressed which one of the following issues? What is the answer? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is B. Loan bonds signed between the money lender and rights would have validity only for 3 years. Okay, this limitation law, by the name only you can understand, which is some putting some limit to something. Okay, so to whom, how they are putting the limit? That is for the loan bonds that was signed between the money lenders and the rights. That would have the validity only for 3 years. 3 years is a limit. Okay, so that's why limitation law, it is associated to the loan bonds that is signed between the money lenders and the rights that would have the validity only for 3 years. So this passed in the 1859. Okay, next. Which one of the following statement relating to the Government of India Act 1858 is correct? And quotes are given below. You need to find out the correct statements using the quotes given below. What is the answer? Let's see the answer. Answer is option A, 1 and 2 only. Okay, so you can see here what first statement telling the British Crown sovereignty over India East India Company assumed from. Okay, so what it means? British Crown took the sovereignty over India, British East India Company abolished. That is true. Next, the British Parliament enacted the first statute to the government of India under the direct rule of the British. Okay, so that is true. East India Company went out of the frame. British direct rule came to the India. Okay, so look after the question statement number 3. This act was dominated by the principle of absolute imperial control without any popular participation in the administration of the country. So that is wrong. By the name, by the statement only you can understand. Okay, so 1 and 2 are correct. So you need to understand what all are the silent features of the Government of India Act 1858. Okay, so first feature was India's rule came directly under the British Crown. That is obvious. Okay, we have discussed it. Next, the administration was to be run by Her Majesty through the Secretary of the State for India. Okay, so they have established different official, that is Secretary of State for India. So this Secretary of State for India is responsible to the majesty, and he is responsible to the council of the Britishers. Okay, British Parliament, I would say. Okay, he was there. Next, the court of directors and board of control were abolished. The court of directors and board of control, they came very long back, right? So that was abolished. And the Council of India was an advisory body with the Secretary of State as its chairman. Okay. Next, this act made India a direct colony of the British Crown, because before that, East India Company was ruling. Now the direct British control is there in India. So that's why it made India a direct colony of the British Crown. Next, Council of India had 15 members, 8 appointed by the Crown and 7 elected by the Court of Directors. These all are the different provisions of the Government of India Act 1858. Okay. Next. Which of the following statements relating to the Indian Council Act of 1861 is or all correct? Again, you need to find out the correct answers using the codes given below. What is the answer? Let's see the answer. All the statements are true. Okay, the Indian Council Act of 1861. Look after the first statement. The Act introduced a popular element by non-official members, Governor General's Council. Okay, so before this Act, only the official members were there in the Governor General Council. Now they are taking the Indians as non-official members to the Governor General's Council. So that is true. Next, the members were nominated and their functions were confined exclusively to consideration of legislative proposals placed before it by the Governor General. Obviously true. Okay, so any proposals and the members were nominated and their functions were confined exclusively to consideration of the legislative proposals placed before it by the Governor General. Next, the Governor General did not have effective legislative power. Okay, so these all are true regarding the Council of Indian Council Act 1861. Okay. The following items consist of two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. Examine these two statements carefully and select the correct answer using the codes given below. Here codes. Statement 1 says, the Pune Pact provided for 151 reserved seats for the scheduled caste to be elected by a joint, not separate electorate. Statement 2, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar withdrew from active politics for almost a decade when the communal award was revoked. What is the answer? Let's see the answer. Answer is option B. Both the statements are individually true, but statement 2 is not correctly explanation of statement 1. Okay, both statements are individually true. So the Pune Pact, that was the agreement between the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi. It was signed on 24 September of 1932 at the Erwada Central Jail in Pune. Okay, so here, between whom this pact happened? Between Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so which asserted that there will be a single Hindu electorate with scheduled caste having a seat reserved within it. Okay, so before this Pune Pact, so the Britishers came up with the communal electorate for the depressed classes. So what is the difference between the communal electorate and the reserved seat? Okay, there is a big difference between the communal electorate and the reserved seat. Communal electorate is something, say for example, if a Muslim candidate is contesting the election, only Muslim people can vote for them, not other any religion people. Okay, only Muslim category people can vote for him. So that is the communal electorate. Okay, So say for example, if a depressed class person is contesting the election, only depressed people can vote for him. Okay, so this is all about communal electorate. So when it comes to the reserved seat, what happens in the reserved seat? It would be by the joint electorate. So what is the meaning of joint electorate? Even a Hindu, even a Brahmin can vote him, Muslim can vote him, and even a other depressed class people can also vote him. Okay, that is irrespective of their religion and caste, all the people can vote for him. So that is joint electorate. And reserved seat means there will be some proportion of the seats are reserved for such a so and so category. Okay, so that happened through the Pune Pact. So they removed the separate electorate or communal electorate. So they started the joint electorate with the reserved seats, 151 reserved seat for the depressed classes. Okay, so that is true. So next, statement number 2, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar withdrew from the active politics for almost a decade when the communal award was revoked. The communal award was made by the British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald on 16 August 1932, allowing the separate electorates in India, and it was supported by the Ambedkar. So when it was removed, he almost, uh, withdrew from the active politics a decade. So that is also true. So, but statement 2 is not the correct explanation of the statement 1. So that's why statement 1 and 2 both are correct, both are individually correct. So there is no linkage between them. Okay, I hope this is clear. Next. Economically, one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century was, what is the answer? So you need to think about economically. What was the result of British rule in India? Let's see the answer. Answer is option C, commercialization of the Indian agriculture. Okay, so before the British invasion, the Indian agriculture was not commercialized. Okay, they were growing it for eating purpose. So when British came to India, they have introduced indigo. They have introduced many other commercial crops in India. So commercialization of Indian agriculture was among the major impacts of the British rule on Indian economy. Okay, so you can see in the option, you can even easily eliminate. So first option says increase in the export of Indian handicrafts. It happened so or what? No, right? Indian handicrafts all are went back when British rule started in India. So increase in the export of Indian handicraft. No, no, this is not the correct answer. Okay, look at the B. Growth in the number of Indian owned factories. Indian owned factories. Okay, so obviously wrong. Extremely, it is telling that Britishers did good for Indians. Okay, this is not right. So this is wrong. Next, D. Rapid increase in the urban population. It didn't happen that way. Okay, so anyhow, answer is option C. We left with C. Commercialization of the Indian agriculture. That was the major impact of the British rule in India in 19th century. Okay. Next, which of the following statement is not correct about the Rowlatt Act? Read carefully. They are asking which one is not correct about the Rowlatt Act. Let's see the answer. Sorry, court's argument. Okay, let's see the answer. Answer is B, 1 and 3. Okay. So it allowed the detention of prisoners for 5 years without trial. This is not correct. Next, the act was not passed because of the opposition from the Indian members. Okay, this is also not correct. So this act already passed. Okay, so that's why 1 and 3 are the correct answer. Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a national nationwide satyagraha against the proposed Rowlatt Act. So this act was hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against the this Rowlatt Act of 1919. Okay, so that's why the first and third statements are not true about the Rowlatt Act. Okay, so look at the second statement. It gave the government the enormous power to repress political activity because they have, through this Rowlatt Act, they have imprisoned a lot of the political leaders, even without the trials. Okay, so that's why it is there. Next, fourth, it led to launch of a movement under Gandhiji's leadership. Led because of against the Rowlatt Act. Okay, so this is also true. But they are asking which is not correct about the Rowlatt Act. So 1 and 3, these two are not correct about the Rowlatt Act. Okay. So in this topic, we learned the British tool, its impacts and regional powers of 1858 to 1947. If you have any questions or any doubts regarding these questions, let me know in the comment section. If you are facing any doubts, let me know in the comment section. And please solve all the test quizzes given in the agirapid.com. If you have any doubts regarding these questions, let me know in the comment section. Okay, guys, I assume there are no doubts. Thank you so much and see you in the next class.